Hey everybody, this is Scott coming to you live from the sanctuary. Just want to continue our talk here a little bit about everything that's going on in the nation and in the world, this coronavirus and such. I posted something yesterday and really felt inspired by the Spirit to write it. Basically what I was saying is, to start it off, is that this is not the end times, but it is the end of things as we know it. And we have to see what is really taking place here. Again, I'm not trying to give you some kind of crazy conspiracy theory, but I'm trying to get our eyes to be open. The biggest thing lacking that I see in the church is prophetic insight, prophetic vision, really understanding purpose and destiny and fulfilling that which God has called us to. And we have to see that God is not going to do anything else that He's already done. He's already sent Jesus to die, to be buried, and to be raised again on the third day for us. He's already made us joint heirs with Him. And we have to see that we're partnering with Him and that He's waiting for us, the church, to respond and do something about what is going on in the earth. So I really want to encourage you to take a look at what I posted yesterday. I didn't get a lot of likes on it. I'm thinking a lot of people didn't look at it. Maybe you're used to me talking now and you want to kind of see what I've done. But sometimes when I feel just inspired by the Spirit to write and I write something, I just feel this was one of those times. And that what I wrote was something that's very significant and very important for us to see. But what I do want to talk about today more so is that there's a quote from Mario Murillo in his great book on 2 Chronicles 7:14, in which he says, "Before a great awakening, there must come a rude awakening." And I believe that this is where we're at right now, is a rude awakening. I've been declaring for years, telling people to prepare and that things are coming. Again, this is not the end times, but I want you to understand that that this is what you should have been preparing for, not just spiritually, but also naturally. Having available food, available products, available medical supplies, having things available that you need, because this is the kind of things that continue to happen. We get so passive in our first world societies here, especially in the United States, where we just are so used to provision, working a job, getting paid, having that money to pay rent and buy food and whatever else we do. But we don't realize that what we have to do is prepare for that which is to come. Over and over again, Jesus said, watch. He said, prepare. He said, pray. These things are, watch really relates to preparation. And not only are we supposed to watch, that means have our eyes open and ask God to give us insight, our spiritual eyes open to see what's going on, and our spiritual ears hearing His voice. But we must also prepare and be ready for that day which is to come. And every time Jesus talked about that, He talked about it as there's things that are about to come that we must be prepared for. So your time of preparation for this calamity is already past. And so what's to come, we must be prepared for. And I'm going to encourage you again, prepare for that which is to come. This is not it. This is just a precursor, just the beginning of what we can expect to see in years to come. But we must be the church, not be having to run and try to get food and try to believe God to survive. We have to be the prepared ones so that when calamity comes upon the earth, we don't have to worry about our basic needs, and we can be those who are out in the streets that are releasing the glory of God with signs, wonders, and miracles following, the Spirit of God moving through us, and people being saved and filled with the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues. This is what I believe that we've got to see and we've got to understand. And so all this that we've been doing, I want to encourage us, all this that we've been doing, all this time that we've spent with God, fellowshipping with Him in His Word and in prayer, learning to hear His voice, all that we've done in attending church, sacrifices that we've made, giving of our time to Him and to serving Him and to ministering to others, all that we've done in using our gifts and letting Him animate those gifts in our life and use those through us, all that we've done in giving of our money, all of those things are for this very moment in time. The seeds and the things that we sow are the things that now we can believe God for the harvest of those seeds that we've planted in the past. And all that's been put in us, we have to see is that there's a purpose for us in being significant for this hour. It's not a surprise to God that this is happening right now, and it's not a surprise to God that you are living in this hour, that you were born for this hour, and I'd like to say that you were born again for this hour. You are a new creation for this hour. As I said, God's seated on the throne, Jesus at his right hand, the Spirit of God is hovering. I had that dream of seeing him hovering and brooding over the face of the earth. He was looking to see the church ready to move out, and so that he, the Spirit of God, could move through the church and manifest in this very moment and hour. Don't feel yourself to be inadequate or insignificant. You have a purpose and a destiny for this hour, and it is time for us as the church to fulfill it. Now, I want to talk about this other thing that I want to talk about today is just something that I've been seeing going on, and it has to do with us being desensitized. Desensitized. This has been going on for years in our society, especially here in the United States. We've seen a lot of desensitizing going on, from simple things like abortion in the 60s to where it's just commonplace. People just do it all the time. Women actually feeling they have the right over that being inside them, that human being inside them, is nothing but a mass of tissue, and they have the right to just of control over their own body, and they can just eliminate that. But in essence, what that is the desensitizing. The truth of the matter is that it's a human being living in your womb, and you are committing murder, killing an innocent child. And so this is how these things work. From looking at television, started in the movies, how they watered down what an R-rated movie is, what a PG-13 movie is, with how much cursing is going to be in that movie, how much sexual innuendo, how much actual sexual things happening, maybe even nudity in the movies. Then it went from the movies to moving it onto television. How weak is television? Sometimes I'm watching television, and I remember, especially several years ago when Philip was a lot younger, and we'd be watching something, and then, here comes a Victoria's Secret commercial on, and I'm like, seriously? We're watching something that's family appropriate, and then you're going to put on this commercial of women scantily clad, and this is how the world continues to try to desensitize us to what is happening. The used to be, smoking and drinking. Remember all the commercials? And of course, then, the tobacco industry got sued and all that happened, and cancer with tobacco, and we're going to outlaw that. But here, drinking is still very prevalent. And now they started with medical marijuana to legalizing marijuana. See how they're desensitizing us? And next thing you're going to see is, we already have many Christians in the church who are drinking and feel that there's nothing wrong with drinking. Now, I personally feel that as a minister of God, that I have a Nazarite vow to God. I will not drink. And I believe, really, I'll just be honest with you, I believe Christians shouldn't drink. That's my opinion, okay? You need to have your own conviction, but I'd rather be filled with the Holy Spirit than be filled with anything else that can intoxicate me. Even because if it takes me, six, I always think to myself, well, if it takes 6 wines for me to be drunk, then if I have one, then I'm 1/6 drunk. So I don't need any of that. And I'd rather be filled with the Spirit of God. And so what's the next thing we're going to see? Are Christians going to start to say, well, pot's legalized, so, I can smoke pot? I mean, we have to see how this desensitizing works. And I said yesterday or 2 days ago that I'm really seeing in this whole thing that coronavirus, okay, first of all, it's part of the onslaught of evil that I saw at the beginning of the year that was coming on the church, although I didn't identify it as well. I was even thinking about that today and how I should have bathed that word in more prayer to get more understanding of what God really was saying for this hour, because I thought it had to do with the election. Well, and guess what? It does have to do with the election. It has everything to do with the election. Everything that, and how the media and certain political people are using this to attack Trump. and they want him out of office. I'm sure they're thinking this is what they're going to be able to use to get him out of office. They've tanked the economy. They don't care about your retirement account. They don't care about your job. They don't care what's going on in your life. They care more about other things. Big government is always concerned about controlling people, controlling the masses, and they're using the fear of this, and I'm sorry to say it, some of you might be offended, minuscule virus, to make it blown out of proportion as something that is much bigger than it is when it is something small. And we have to see that, we had what happened during H1N1 swine flu when 60.6 million Americans were infected by it. And and now here we have, I think, 10,700 this morning that are infected by this virus that we know of, and I'm sure there's more. Nevertheless, it is so small in comparison. A couple days ago, I gave that percentage. At that time, it was 0.00001%, 1/100,000th of 1% of the population that was infected. So now maybe it's 2/100,000ths of the population that is infected. It is such a small number to cause such chaos. There's something else behind it. Mark my words. I'm telling you by the Spirit of God, there's something else in operation or that is using this for other purposes. And this is what I'm talking about, is this whole desensitizing. We have to see that that God is using this as a test, and the government is using this as a test. The government is checking to see what they can do, whether intentional or not. They are looking to see if they can. They're going to see from this, and this is what I said: is this is not the end times, but this is the end of things as we know it. Because what the government is going to realize from this whole experience is that how easy it is for people to comply, how easy it is to wreak fear and havoc into the society, to gain control and use fear to do such a thing, how easy it is to to be able to use martial law and to override our constitutional rights and our rights of freedom in this nation. They're going to see just how easy it is. They're going to remember this moment. Mark my words, they are going to remember this moment. And I'm telling you, we need to get our heads out of the sand. We need to get our heads out of the world. We need to get our heads off the news and off social media and get ourselves in the Word of God and get ourselves flowing in the Spirit of God, being fired up by the presence of God, and being ready to hear His voice, see what's going on, and move forward in being a minister to this society, because the only answer is Jesus. The only answer is what He did on the cross. Nothing else matters. Trump is not the answer. Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx are not the answer. None of these people are the answer. Jesus is the answer, the only answer to coronavirus and to the economic collapse that is happening right before our very eyes. And so we have to see that at the same time, not only is the government testing us, but God is testing us. And God is testing us to see if we're going to stand with Him, if we're going to draw close to Him, if we're going to enter the secret place, and if we're going to abide with Him in the midst of these things. I tell you, this is one of the things I always say, that it's either the church in a time of respite, which we've had under Trump for the last 3 years, in a time of respite, will we run to God and be revived? And I hear people throw around the word revival all the time. Revival does not have to do with people getting saved. Revival has to do with putting the defibrillator on the heart of the church and bringing it back to life, reviving the church back to life, that there might be a great awakening and just an enormous evangelistic move across the face of the earth. The church has to be awakened to its purpose and set on fire by the Spirit of God, has to once again fear God. This is one of the things that this test is bringing from God, how He's using it to test us. Let me put it that way. How He's using it, that which the devil has released upon the face of the earth, how He's using it to test His church and to revive it. He's trying to bring us back to the place where we fear Him. Many of us have lost the fear of God. I don't feel myself that I have it to the degree that I need to. And we have to have that fear of God working in our life to where we recognize the fact that we are going to stand before Him one day and give account for everything that we've done in this life. And so we've got to see that we are going to be those who fear Him and who choose Him over other things including every idol that we could have. I love that idols are being torn down in the sports industry, things like that that people have as idolatry. So, it could be eating out. That could be an idol to you, going to restaurants and eating, good food or something like that. I mean, there's, going to the movies could be an idol. And so it's wonderful that I'm seeing these kinds of things. But what we have to see is God is also looking to see if we will choose Him over the government. Now, where I live, and this is kind of new for me, I'm surprised at how easily so many churches shut their doors just at the recommendation, request of President Trump and the government for social distancing and not gathering in groups of 10 or more. Now, I'm sure you can see from my post, you feel what my opinion would be, and I can tell you the apostles and prophets that I follow and I'm connected with, and the remnant churches that I'm connected with, for the majority, they have all kept their doors open, are continuing to have meetings. Now, they might be establishing things like hand washing stations. They might be requiring that people sit a chair or two apart. There might be these kinds of things that they're doing. They might be encouraging elderly to stay home, or those with compromised physical conditions and such. And those are, and with no condemnation, no judgment, and those are good things. But to shut our doors, I'm just so surprised at how easily that they got us to comply. How so passive the church is. And sometimes, I look at it, and I've looked at a lot of the comments on Facebook and such, and seeing that how the church is, in my estimation, trying to walk in the Lamb of Jesus and not seeing Him for who He is. Jesus is not the lamb that we saw sacrificed on the cross anymore. Jesus is not the lamb who just loved everybody and just hugged everybody, brought the children on His lap, did all those things, said, turn your cheek and all that. Now, I'm not saying those are not parts of Christianity and that there's not reality to that, but so many live only in that realm that they've missed the lion side of Jesus. He is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He is seated at the right hand of God. When John saw Him in the book of Revelation, he saw Him as His feet were bronze, His hair was white, he emanated with the light and glory of God. He had eyes that were of flaming fire, that a sword came out of His mouth. And this is the Jesus that is seated on the throne. This is the Jesus who's going to be bursting forth through us in the last days move of glory upon the face of the earth. We've got to see that the church has to stand up and be a warrior as much as it is to be showing the love of God in the earth. And that's what I've seen many do, is say, well, it's our place to submit to authorities. Let me tell you something, people. There's no law been passed. It's just a recommendation. You need to hear from God how to follow that. I saw a great post from Jeremiah Johnson. I shared it on my Facebook page. You can see it there today, where he's talking about all these churches who have shut their doors and thinking it's only going to be a few weeks, not realizing that how much their giving is going to go down in their church, because people are not going to give online. It's just a given fact. Probably 50% of them are not going to give now that they have the chance to be sitting at home and not have to be in the church with a plate being passed or an offering being done. And many of those pastors are going to realize the mistake that they made in being so compliant and passive, and realizing that what they need to do is get their churches back open again. And that's probably what's going to happen. And so I heard the Lord clearly the other day speaking that it's time for the church to connect and to expand. That's what this is all about. It's time for us to connect with one another, not to be at home, and to be, because what's going to happen, I guarantee you this too, many people are not going to connect with others. They're not going to connect live. They're going to just sit at home, and for some it could bring about backsliding for those that are younger. And so there is such a demand, if we're going to shut our doors, for every one of you that are ministers that are listening, if you are going to shut your doors, you had better be on the phone, you had better be calling people, you had better be following up, you better have a plan in place that people are going to really connect to and really be part of. But I believe, and I heard the Lord speak it a few days ago, this is time for the church to connect and time for the church to expand and to advance, not to be shut in, but to be moving forward, to be out in the streets, for people to be out in the streets. This is time for the Pew ministry to arise, for us to be out there and to be, for the real church to be evident, not the leaders. We get the people are so dependent on leaders so much. Give us a king like all the other nations. Moses, you go up to the mountain and you hear from God and you tell us what to do. No, these days are over. That is the epitome of religion. We have to see that it is time for every single one of us to realize we are ministers. Jesus has made every born-again Christian a king and a priest unto God. And as priests, we are to minister unto him and minister for him. So we're to be out there in the kingly authority that he's put upon us, and to be ministering the great news of the gospel, having our feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, taking the shield of faith, knowing that even though there's a virus out there, it cannot come near my dwelling, it cannot touch us. And we get out there and we preach the word, we pray for people, we confess. If you don't want to touch them, don't touch them. But let your mouth be open and be speaking the truth of God. I just wanted to share this one last thing, this one little note that I made yesterday morning. Kim and I in prayer had gotten this in the morning as I was, I work for a bank that's my tent making. When I'm not traveling, I'll be traveling out of state this week, going to a church. And so as I was thinking about that, because I had gotten an email from the bank, which as a customer, but it's my bank, it's the same place I work, and they were talking about all the things that we can do to bank digitally. And this is what I want us to see, is how this desensitizing gets us to adopt things. Shut our church down. That's an easy thing. Seemed like so many people did it. I'm not saying they didn't hear from God. Don't misunderstand me, but it just seems so easy for them to comply with that and think of it as obeying authorities when maybe that's not what God was saying. Maybe they're just copying what everybody else is doing. I don't know, but nevertheless, the bank's asking you to do things digitally, getting us desensitized to the fact that we need anything personal. And what does this do? It sets us up for adopting a mark of the beast. How easy it is for us to be able to just digitally commit transactions and receive our money and all of those things. And I tell you what the government's going to realize is they're going to say, you know what, when COVID-19 was out there, look at how easily we got the people to stop assembly, to do what we told them. Look how easily we brought fear into the place. Look how easily we were able to get them to do everything digitally. Look how easily this and that. And they're going to remember this day, and they're going to remember how they completely shut things down, like in California, how they brought the guard into the reserves, made them active in New Jersey. They're going to remember these things and how easy it was. And when the real calamity happens, I'm telling you, when the real comes on the scene, and I do believe it's closer than ever, and I do believe it's not many days hence, that we're going to see it in the future. The governments of the world are going to remember how they responded and how we responded, and they're going to expect it again. And then we're going to have to war like we've never warred before. We're going to have to stand up for righteousness and stand up for truth and stand up for God like we never have before. And so I just want to encourage you with that today. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. I love you. You've been watching The Voice of the Harbinger, and I'll be back on again soon. Bye.